We're showing off in front of the thing. You get it.
Playing hard, playing tough, just playing good is not good enough. We're gonna show you what league's all about. If there's a lesson to be learned, we're handing it out. This game is our game. This town is our town. Turn the heat up and listen to the crowd.
Good evening and welcome to the Joust. Very exciting Joust. My name's Nagy. I'm here as always with my pale yet slightly pinkish friend tonight, Liam McNeil. Liam, how are you?
Excellent. I'm pink as a soccer ball ham, fresh out of the deli, feeling great.
Is that a thing, soccer ball ham?
Yeah, soccer ball ham. It's where they take all the shitty old, not the old ham, but the cheap offcuts of the ham and kind of blend it up into a ham paste, reform it into a ball and sell it from the deli, really cheap.
Like a tube of like a...
Not the tube, no. No, they form it into kind of the shape of a leg ham.
I digress, Liam. We have a very exciting show tonight because round one, victory. Who would have thought it was going to happen? I definitely didn't think it was going to happen like that.
Well, you're a dickhead.
Yeah.
I thought exactly it was going to happen, exactly like that. And I was, I wasn't overly confident going in, I must admit, after the last few years and such. But yes, no, it was a truly wonderful way to start the season.
I was saying to someone earlier today, and I was saying why this game was so important that we won it like that. I was like, Newcastle have lost games just like that for the last 20 years. And it, like, always early on, always like, expectations high, and we just didn't quite live up to it. And then it's like, oh, well, we'll improve. Oh, we got to gel. We got to focus on this area. But we had the game, in front of 25,000 fans. We had the game right there, and we took it. We took it, and we fucking won it.
And we did, which again, like you said, Knights teams of the last few years would not have done that. 99 times out of 100, any Knights team in the last 4 to 5 years loses that game.
Loses the game every time, and it would have been like, oh, we're so close. And like last year, how many games did we win? We were winning at half time.
8.
Like 8 games
and
at
lost.
half time. Yeah,
8 we were winning at half time and we lost.
So that was why it's so important. It was nothing. It was neck and neck right through. But Liam, I've got to ask you, as far as the game, round one, even though we came away with the 2 points, what went right for you?
What went right, I think, the control of Mitchell Pearce. You could really see he controlled the tempo of the game in a way that our younger playmakers in the past couldn't have. I thought his kicking game was very good. It really it got us some very good field position because Manly ran for a lot more than us. They had us on the back foot in defence quite a bit. But I think Pearce's kicking game got us out of trouble quite a few times. And I think it really showed, what a top-class half can bring. So I think one of the things that majorly went right for me was the control of the game.
Yeah.
And the way that we kind of set the standard.
Yeah. We set the pace of the game.
We set the pace.
Yeah, it was definitely like we obviously we got off to a very, very good start. But it was but for me, what went right was with that clinch moment. Golden point. And we didn't, we thought that maybe Guerra had the ball and was going to like run away with it right before Golden Point. We're like, no, it's going to go to Golden Point. And then for me, I just tightened up inside. Even though we won a few Golden Point games at home in the past, but I was like, look, it just doesn't feel good. Manly's coming with a bit of ascendancy. But I think what went right was that pace and control. We always kept the foot down to want to win the game, and I think previous teams previous night sides will want to draw that game. Try to be a bit protective over like, oh, we'll come away with at least 1 point. But Liam, I have to ask you, what went right? What went wrong?
What went wrong? I think we gave this big, explosive, hard-running Manly pack a bit too much leeway. I think the defence was too happy to sit back on the heels, let the big players come to them, and it worked. I mean, the defence was very good, and we nullified a few offloads. They got a lot of offloads. There were 17 offloads to 4 in favour of Manly, but we always had the players in support around it. However, it's a very tiring game plan, having these enormous men running at you when I think maybe a bit more line speed would be needed to get up and really stifle them. And it showed in the run meters. They ran for an extra 200 meters than us. I think the line speed needs a bit of work. And obviously it came together well in the game because we won by a single point. But I think with a bit more line speed against bigger, more powerful packs like that, we can make the games not as close.
Yeah. We definitely get like I know what you mean, because what went wrong for us again, like giving the big man too much space, and this has been evident now against Parramatta, bigger pack than us, and they definitely won that forwards battle. And I thought our bigger guys, I thought Jimenez SA played really well, but I thought Lilliman and Safidi, I just didn't think we were getting that ascendancy in the middle. I thought the fringes did better, but I thought I don't want this to become a thing of our forward pack just doesn't quite match up to theirs. And I thought, Parramatta's one thing, Manly's the second thing. Manly's pack's nowhere near as good, I don't think, as Parramatta's. So, I just think that I don't want that to become a recurring theme.
However, given the disparity in, the size and the power of the middles, I think our middles did well. It's a smaller middle.
Yeah, it's a smaller middle.
But they did well. The Manly power players, like Adam Fanua-Blake, Tapau, Kellepi Tanganoa, they were running insanely hard and they were making a lot of meters. But we were making our tackles. We were kind of settling up the offloads and forced them to go around. Their first 2 tries, obviously there was the really soft Sean Lane try on the line, but for their other 2 tries, they had to go around. And I think the Knights have become a lot better at shoring up that middle. They're giving away a few extra meters, but they're making the tackles. They're preventing the offloads. They're getting 3 and 4 in the tackle, and then the 2 in support either side of the tackle player to nullify the offload. So Manly got a lot of offloads, but they weren't necessarily very effective.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And Liam, we got to bring back obviously a favourite segment. Is who is your hats off for round 1?
Now, it's easy to go with the Pong because he had one of the great games of all time.
What was that? The
Pong. He was pongstrong. Hashtag pongstrong, Knights fans. He scored his try on debut 3 minutes in, 12 tackle busts, a few try savers.
Yeah.
He was insanely comfortable at the back.
Yeah.
I've changed my mind. He's my hats off. Yeah.
Oh, so your hats off? The Pong.
Pong.
That's very good. And for mine, personally, speaking about that, struggling in the middle, I thought the one player that really did stand up for my hats off for this week, I'll have to give it to Herman S.A.S.A. The man so nice they named him 2 times.
One time and then another time after that.
Yes, with the same name. No, I thought he did really well. I think you might have some stats there as far as his... how many hit-ups did he take?
22 hit-ups, 169 metres, 5 tackle busts. His footwork at the line was great. His late footwork really kind of allows him to poke his nose through and get that quick play the ball. I think SASA was great. He's a phenomenal signing. I'm really excited to see him running around.
For a guy that's only finding his way into a new side, and obviously came with a lot of expectation from Brisbane. And it could have been easy to him to play a very numbers game, a very 12 hit ups of the game, maybe crack 100 meters. But it was hard yakka out there in the middle, as we said before. So, and for him just to keep putting his hand up, and even when in extra time, and late in the game when the game was still in the balance, he was there putting his hand up for the first run, third run, getting his hands on the ball, obviously way more. And I think he led the hit up count for the entire.
He did lead the hit up count for the entire comp over the weekend with his 22. Yeah,
incredible. And obviously, when we have our hats off to a player, we must also return our hats back on. And who's your hats back on to a player you didn't think did so well this week?
Now, my hats back on is not through the efforts of the players, but purely through how the game plan affected their game. I think the centres, Tautau and Sione, had quiet games. With big, hard-running centres like that, they need early ball.
Yeah.
But in a game like Manly, it's very much a middle-centred game. It's forwards hitting it up, forwards running really hard, and the centres don't get quite so much ball. Manly did it, and it worked. Brian Kelly scored his tries and did quite well out wide. But I think the Knights now need to work on getting Sione and Tautau a lot of extra ball. However, I will counteract that by saying that they were very good out of our own half. The back 5 were great, taking the early hard runs out of our own 20, out of our own 30. Sione and Tautau especially, they were taking the ball really hard out of our own end. And Rossi as well, SKD. So while it's a hats back on for the centres, it's through no fault of their own. Maybe they could have taken ownership, called for the ball a bit more, but I think it's more due to the game plan that they had somewhat quiet games. Also, their defence, they're still, and we showed it in the Parramatta trial, they tended to compress the Newcastle line and force Manly to go around us, which hasn't paid off for us so far, with a few tries coming out on the fringes there. But, I think it's just a part of the game plan, and as they grow in trust in defence, they'll stop making the bad calls with Moga going in a few times. Sione went in a few times, leaving their wingers stranded.
Yeah.
But I think that'll come with time. Combinations, trust, that'll come with time.
Minutes on the field. That's what the only way that those combinations are gonna form is minutes on the field playing together. And I kind of agree more with centers. My hats back on is to the former captain of the side, and really a real part of that nucleus that we talked about last season was Sione Matautia. Obviously, his only reason he's my hat's back on is because obviously he's in a new position and he's probably playing a bit conservative, worrying about his concussions. And for me, he had a very quiet game. You might have missed him if you thought that if you weren't watching carefully. However, in saying that, it was, I can understand why he had a quiet game. He just needed to run the numbers at centre. last year when he was playing at centre, before he moved in the back row, or it might have been the year before, when we trialled him at centre, I was worried about his defence because he does do it in an up and in, and that's someone that's an aggressive defender will come up and in because that's it's a natural sort of a thing that even if you're playing in your fringe, you want to come up and shut it down because that's naturally what you want to do. Rather than it's hard to defend backwards, you know what I mean? Back when you're working back off your hips, it's something different, and it will take a while for him not to overcommit, but I think that's, as we talked about, that trust. So, Sione for me is hats back on.
Speaking of what didn't work, thoughts on the Connor Watson at 6? How do you like that?
Now, I've got to say, like a lot of people have come out, even like outside sort of commentators of various teams and the game itself. I think there's lots of talks of like, I really like Brock Lamb in the side. I thought he looked a better side coming on. What I don't think is, I think in that game in particular, like when when it's 10 minutes down, we need to score more points and we need maybe throw something else in the mix. Sure, put Brock Lamb in and mix up the side, but this can't work again and again and again. That worked for this side and during that game in that situation, but we can't have Brock Lamb, in my opinion, we can't have Brock Lamb on the bench as a wasted 5'8", if you know what I mean. Like, for me, you either put him in the side at 5'8", move Connor Watson either to reserve hooker, or put him at fullback, and you either got to start him, or for me, long term, you can't have this rotating thing. I know it worked for the Roosters last year, having Connor Watson as sort of that sort of stopgap filler, but at the same time, we're not the Roosters, even though we have a lot of ex-Roosters. We're
That's it. You could have fooled me, Nagy. You could have fooled me.
We're trying our best to be the Roosters, no, but we're not that. We don't have that finesse and class of the Roosters of, say, the last 2 years. So we can't pretend to be and have this luxury of having like a reserve. I think, if anything, our bench was a bit light, only having the one forward and Daniel Safidi, and then having Bura and Hyington, who I think, if anything, are more of you're more. I know Hyington, like, he played prop for England, and that's all well and good, but like, he's not that meter bending prop. He's a by the numbers prop. He's he's going to get that work done for you, but no side's going to be like, Chris Hyington's on. Like, let's all focus on him. It's when you have that in Daniel Safidi. And so I think for me, I would like to see, your back row replacement like a Bura, if you're going to have him off the bench, 2 props, and you're going to have a Danny Levi back in there. Look, I love Brock Lamb. I think he adds a great thing to the side. He's come up right through the system for Newcastle. But for me, you got to put him in the start or not have him at all. That's just and you're not going to get a good combination building between Mitchell Pearce and Brock Lamb at the back end of 15 minutes. You know what I mean? But good credit to Brownie to putting him on, because a lot of coaches in that situation, a lot of pressure on Brownie would have just gone, keep him there, maybe we'll chuck him on in.
Well, yeah, I think Manly, with 10 minutes to go, had 2 fresh players on the bench. They hadn't touched.
Did they really?
I believe so.
Christ. What is Trent Barrett doing up there?
I think Brownie slapped the brains out of him that time. But it's funny you mentioned Safidi, and now you said earlier you thought he was quiet. Au contraire, from my personal opinion, Nagy, I thought when he came on, he brought a lot of aggression. He ran I think his first hit up was off the kickoff, and he absolutely ran like the clappers. He was getting in on tackles. He made one little beautiful cover tackle on a potential break off an offload, and I think he was actually quite good off the bench, bringing a good intensity from the bench.
I'm probably being a little bit critical because I probably have Daniel Safidi in my starting side. I think Daniel Safidi is that because he's 7 foot tall, just that crazy Fiji, and that you want to have at the start. Just he's huge and he's rangy and he attracts a lot of defense. If anything, I thought maybe Lillyman didn't really have that. It was just, I don't know. I just think it needs tweaking. And I think it all started for me when I got like a little bit critical. We came out of the result, but it was a tit-for-tat game. For me, when we took Danny Levi off, out of the side, and then we have this weird sort of hooker rotation, Connor Watson from 6. For me, and this is, again, my opinion, this is why we're all watching.
Well, Nagy, you know what they say.
No.
Opinions are like arseholes. They all stink.
There is that. I don't think a good hooker replacement is someone that's already on the field, even if they're defending out in the fringe. You shouldn't put your 5'8" into hooker. Call me crazy. You should, it should be a position that you inject something with the game. Whether it be, if it was the other way around, start Danny Levi and then you inject a bit of stability in there and get the halves some nice clean early ball. And by the way, Slade Griffin, clean ball. Can I say delivery and control around that ruck with his patience was something else.
Remarkable. Not only that, his defense, 44 tackles, his patience around the ruck, like you said. And the other thing that he brought was a real defensive intensity and pressure. You'll notice if you watch towards the end of the game, Daly Cherry Evans was having a few pot shots, field goals. He got into position a few times. Every single time, Slade Griffin was there. Every single kick chase, Slade Griffin was there. Every single time, a Manly player went to make a bust or do something, Slade Griffin was there. He was absolutely everywhere. Yeah. And like you said, he controlled the ruck very well. His service was very good. He's hitting players on the chest. My only concern is that his service isn't quick enough.
Yeah.
You notice when he passes off the deck, he takes an extra millisecond just for that wind-up, which will allow, until the players get more comfortable with playing with Slade, they can tend to overrun him a little bit. It also gives the defense an extra second to move up, which as a hooker, that's your bread and butter. You need to be getting that ball off the deck immediately. So I think that needs work. But besides that, he was amazing. He was, one of our contenders for hats off. He was brilliant.
I got to say, Liam, you couldn't have written the end of that game any better for a Newcastle side that's just got 9 new players, including the marquee player, the biggest marquee player we have since Darius, in Mitchell Pearce, and for him to finally kick that one, I tell you what, to kick that one, how long do we have in the clock? 90 seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
I just would have think a lot of the previous night sides would have just sort of played the safe numbers, maybe gone for the corner, but to actually back yourself, go for that field goal. Even though I thought that first field goal that he went, I thought that went over.
That was one of the most beautiful field goals I've ever seen.
Both of them just excelled off the boot. And I was speaking to someone that's quite close to the club, and they were saying that he's been practicing all preseason and spraying them. So he saved his best for where it counted, and that meant so much just in front of that huge crowd at Newcastle, all the fans coming out there, just electric feel, new owners, a lot of investment in the club, and we just rewarded close to 25,000. I think it might have been
23,516.
That amount of people we've just rewarded to come back, and we had the graveyard shift. We had the 6 o'clock. The people on a Friday afternoon, even though we had the Newatali Nelms.
God bless Newatali.
Yeah, Newatali Nelms.
Newtuli?
Newtuli? I don't know. I understood that. But it's get a better first name, Newatali. The school you just Tali. How about that?
I didn't vote for you.
But
I forgot to vote. Actually.
It was nice you gave a bit of a Bob Hawke speech, but I really hope, because you said if there was anyone that doesn't, any boss that doesn't let their employee go and watch the game, and I thought if she just said "is a bam," I would have been
bam.
I would have. If she had a jacket, it would have just been perfect, very very hawky. But instead, she said, "Isn't Nova Castrian." But it's nice to have that kind of support around. And it was an absolute fairy tale of an end. You couldn't, Roald Dahl couldn't have written a better story to that, even though he was a bit dark actually.
He was a bit, he wouldn't have written a happy ending.
No, but it was incredible. But we are just people of the game, Liam. We are just the peanut gallery shouting advice. But we have a true expert coming on the show in just a moment. We have Josh Spiegel, the Beagleman.
The Beagle got a real nose for stats. The Beagle,
he does.
He can sniff them out.
He does, and we got him on the line, and we'll get him on very soon. We'll be right back with it. All right, guys, we're here with our very own resident stat man, Josh Spiegelman. Josh, have we got you on the line?
Yep, all good, mate. I can hear you loud and clear.
Welcome to the Joust, Josh. It's all good to have you on a live version here. It's
great to be here, mate. Finally talking to you face to face with my proper name. Love it.
Yeah, had a few names last season, but it's good now that we can actually refer to you as your true name, or even though
it's not made up, even though it might sound like it. This is the true name. So let's continue.
Thank you very much, Spiegel the Beagle. Now, Liam, I think you had a question for him.
I did. Now, Spiegelman, from the game against Manly, who were the movers and shakers, numbers wise? Who impressed? Who ignored? Who were the big ones?
So I think we'll start with some positives, as all the fans are such in a good mood still. So obviously the Pong man, I think, is the standout from a stats point of view, and obviously outside the stats, is 2 try savers, one on Aku in the corner, which was a bit of justice for last year, that phantom try. Yeah, and also Cherry Evans racing down the right in the second half, how he tackled him one-on-one, that really stood out to me outside the stats. But if we look into the stats with the Pong, he made 12 tackle breaks, which was the highest in the entire NRL in round 1. And if we compare it to last year, Gagai, who was our leading tackle breaker, only topped 12 once all season. And that was when he played centre. So when he was at fullback, he only averaged 6 a game. So if Pong has already doubled that in the first game, it's pretty encouraging early on, I'd say.
Fantastic. What about maybe any letdowns stat-wise from the game?
Yeah, I got a few letdowns, mate. I think Jacob Lillyman was, as predicted, he didn't make many metres, only 73 off 10 runs. so only had 11 post-contact meters in the match, so pretty solid but unspectacular. Now, if you just compare that quickly with Esiesi, who was absolutely superb, he had 22 runs for 169 meters, 40 meters post-contact. So Lilliman's got to, chip in a bit more going forward, I think.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, how did you find our back rowers? So, obviously, you're Aiden Guerra's... what's the other bloke name? The young bloke, Lachlan Fitzgibbon. How did you find them? Because they seemed like they had quiet games, but what they did do was big. How did they come up numbers-wise?
Yeah, well, I looked at Guerra in particular. He was really busy. I was at the game and I didn't realise quite how busy he was. He made 42 tackles with only a few misses, 19 runs for 128 metres, which was our second highest behind Esiesi. So he was really something on the edge there. So it's encouraging going forward.
I've got to say, the back row definitely stood out for me. If we're going to look forward to the Canberra game, is there anyone in particular that you think from the Canberra side that we might have to be watching, worried about?
Yeah, I did some brief analysis on this after the game yesterday. Amazing finish, by the way, so they'll be fired up against us. But Shannon Boyd, he ran for 147 metres, 63 metres after contact, so beat any of our players, and he had 100% tackle effectiveness. Now, when he got subbed off in the game with Havili, the hooker, as well, you could see the Raiders' middle really soften. So we got to, shut him down early and pay attention when he gets subbed out. Could be some exploitation there. Any
of the Knights players you think we might be looking to focus, might do well against this Canberra side?
I haven't looked at a player analysis right now versing each other. I'll be doing that later in the week, and you can read that on my blog that I put up midweek.
Can we find that on
the... To Slade Griffin to continue on his round one form. I mean, he impressed me so much. 44 tackles, 95% success rate. Obviously, that great try. I think be a bit of a battle between the hookers, Havili and Griffin, two new signings, and both impressed in their time on the field in round one.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Josh. So we can catch your blog on the Kingdom Knights page?
Yeah, they often post it, or just go to WordPress and type in my complicated name, Josh Spiegelman, and it'll pop up the old sports statistics blog. So all about the Knights and their opponents going forward.
Josh, we can't thank you enough for having you on the show. It's a good pleasure, and we'll be catching you next week as well.
Sounds good, boys. Up the Knights.
Thank you very much, Josh. Yeah, I think we can't thank Josh Spiegelman enough. We've been working with him now for probably as long as we've been around. He's a big supporter of the show early on, but yeah, he often posts his stuff on Knights the Kingdom. So make sure that you catch that there. The prominent Knight supporters page, that's the real deal.
Absolutely, it's second to none, and it's great to have someone on board who has a handle on numbers. As our listeners would know, Nag, I often struggle with numbers, so it's good to have someone who has a good understanding of all those numbers, how they affect the game, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Liam, I have to ask you, how'd you go tipping wise this round?
Not too good. You put mine in. I got 3.
That's right. You got 3.
How many did you get?
4. Yeah.
Great. Off to a wonderful start.
I know, but if you want to be part of a really great tipping comp, you got to go down and see Stu, Kath, and the gang down at the Commonwealth Hotel.
Wonderful venue.
It is a wonderful venue, and it's the best tipping comp going around. It's all the who's who of tipsters, isn't there? And us. Which is neither of the who or the other who. We're just people that can't tip very well. Tip with a heart, that's the problem. And lack the mind tipping part.
Yeah, but your heart doesn't do anything else well. It's not pumping the blood around too good.
Yeah, no, I'm struggling on all fronts. Now, Liam, I have to ask you, as far as we've got the Canberra game this Sunday. We've got the 6:30 slot, I think, down there in the nation's capital. What's that stadium called down there? It's still got
GIO Stadium.
GIO Stadium. No, I was going to think that was the Dairy Farmers one, but that's North Queensland.
Formerly known as Dairy Farmers was North Queensland. It's 1300 Smiles now.
What terrible names for stadiums have come around, isn't it?
They shouldn't name stadiums after sponsors.
No, I know. That's why.
Although Marathon Tyres was the sponsor, that's a great name for a stadium. Marathon Stadium.
Marathon Stadium. Now, but Liam, so what do you want to see out of this Canberra game on Sunday?
Look, there's a few things I think need work for the Canberra game. They've got a very enormous pack, similar to Manly, big, powerful pack, and I think, as I touched upon earlier, I think we need to get a bit more line speed in defence, shut their big men down a bit earlier. They haven't quite got the offloading clout as Manly do, so we can focus on getting more in the tackle and really shut their big pack down. And it was like Spiegelman said on the phone, big blokes like Shannon Boyd, Junior Paulo, if they get ahead of steam, they're just going to roll through. So I think a bit of extra line speed the Knights need to get up and really shut them down. The other danger for me is their back three. If you look at Jordan Rapana, Nick Kotrick, Jack White, and their kick returns are amazing, especially Jack White, and he runs the ball back harder than anyone.
Yeah.
So I think we need to nullify that. Ideally, I guess, using a similar tactic that Brownie employed last year, kicking for the corners, plugging the sidelines, taking the back three out of the game, because they are great finishers. Kotrick and Rapana are two of the best finishers in the game. I think you've really got to eliminate that.
Yeah.
And a lot of pressure around the play the ball. With the absence of Josh Hodgson, they've got Silva Havilian, is the, I think, future king of Tonga. Good player, but I think if there's enough pressure around the ruck, you know, he could start making some errors, and he doesn't tend to play 80 minutes, so they'll spend a fair bit of the game with a part-time hooker in, which I believe this week was Aiden Caesar. And so if there's a lot of pressure in around the ruck, trying to maybe slow it down a bit, really, I think we need to set the pace at the ruck. We really need to control the ruck.
If you want to really control those big men, is putting pressure around the ruck and not let them gain ascendancy. What I would like to see, I think, is, you know, is a tit-for-tat game against Manly, and like we're scoring points and then immediately conceding one after, and that's, you know, that seems all too, you know, it's easier said than done, but like just focusing and making those points count when we score them, so to really like keep that ascendancy and like keep those points on the board and not just make it back to 0-0 again, as has happened in Manly against Manly. So, but obviously that's what I want to see. Now, Liam, we did something very special this week, something that we had to dust off. Your sack. Can you want to open your sack for this week, Liam?
Oh, it's been sitting, gathering dust and doing a hell of a lot of nothing. But great response to the sack. Thank you all for your questions there, guys. Now, I've got quite a few. I've sort of combined a few of them because a lot of you did ask very much the same question. So I'm asking it from Joe Frost initially. Now, what's Danny Levi's long-term future look like? Is it in red and blue? Is it too soon to tell? What do we think?
Too soon to tell, I think. I'd have to say. However, I in my first team, he's in there. You need him like that. If we were down, 14 points, and he's in the first, you want him on to inject something in that side, which I don't think you're going to get from Brock Lamb. And look, I love Brock again, but I think, you know, his forte is ball movement. But I think Danny Levi's, where he really added something to that side is, you know, especially in this Canberra game, is going to be speed around that ruck, around those tired fours, Junior Paulo, Shannon Boyd, the big fellas that, that after about 15 minutes, put him in, you know, keep Slade Griffin on in that rotation that we spoke about. So you keep the good defender on, and you just let Danny Levi run. Just let the legs go.
I agree. I think, especially, again, like you said, with a bigger forward pack, that will tire a bit like your Canberras. I know a number of them were in Fat Club over the off-season. Levi could work miracles around the ruck. He could be phenomenal, tear them apart. So, again, I feel like for this week's option, Levi is the better option on the bench as opposed to Brock Lamb. But, you know, we'll see what Brownie's doing. Could change in the future. But it leads into our next question, which was posed by a number of jousters. How do you balance Brock Lamb, Slade Griffin, Danny Levi, Connor Watson? Where's the balance? It's
hard early on in the season, but it's gonna just eventuate. It's gonna be time on the field, and I think showing what these players can do together, in you know, who's gelling with who's got better combinations with who. And look, if you're seeing if Brock Lamb gets some more time on the field, and him and Mitchell Pearce are complementing each other, Connor Watson has to be moved back to the bench. You know, and if you know, that's the manage, but we will have an injury, and Connor Watson's versatile, and he will fill that gap. So if injury to the Pong or something like that, I think Connor Watson's moving backwards on the field, not physically, but it's you move into fullback and you shift everyone around like that. So I think, look, we're sport for choice at the moment, but we can't assume that we're going to go through the first 10 rounds and not get an injury. And if we do, I think you play it as we're talking about now. What's in front of us. So bigger fullback with Canberra, Danny Levi's in, Brock Lamb's out.
And further to that, I liked later in the game when Brownie had the four ball players on. He had Slade Griffin on, he had Connor Watson, Brock Lamb, and Mitchell Pearce on all at the same time. It was reminiscent of what Queensland did a few years ago, bringing Michael Morgan in as the super sub. He would move into lock. It's a very small team, it's mobile, but it did seem to work for us, and it worked very well for Queensland. So I think if you keep those players, again, given injury, one of them's going to have to drop out eventually, but you can keep that core of your four players playing those three roles almost, and it could do it quite well. Now, Nick Turner. Now, Nick, this is one of the best questions we've ever got from the sack. I hope you can get the internet and PNG and hear our answer. Nick Turner asks, Glenn Grief, Troy Fletcher, Leo Dinova, Sean Rudder, and George Carmont would all like to have lunch with you, but you've only reserved a table for two at Henny Penny Adamstown. Therefore, you must choose only one of the aforementioned as your dining companion. Who do you choose, and what do you order for lunch?
I'll probably bring, Georgie Hollywood Carmont. The man with the socks around his ankles.
And the hair around his shoulders.
And the hair around his shoulders. Gee, that was some good times. I a big fan of Georgie, being a Raymond Terrace boy and, from the area. And probably, was Milton Friday on that list? No.
Milton Friday was not.
No, but maybe I'll get Glenn Grief. Is there good grief, Glenn Grief? Yeah, there be anyone else? What about yourself, Liam?
Look, I've got to go with Troy Fletcher.
Troy Fletcher.
I always just thought he had strange hair. It was so curly,
and
kind of out like a side afro. And I think I gotta, catch up with Troy and ask what he does to his hair. What products does he use? What's his regimen?
Yeah.
And I think I'd order us a couple of chip and gravy rolls.
Yeah.
Over a pair of chip and gravy rolls.
Henny Penny, of course. Let's keep it very, I don't think you can reserve tables at Henny Penny, but let's just say we'll keep it very, very Newcastle-y.
But there was now one that was missed. The Knight Rider.
Justin Rider got a big push for that. Everyone's like, well, where's the Knight Rider? So, obviously we'll invite Justin. Maybe have him on the phone like we did with Spiegelman.
We could have Justin Rider on the phone very soon. Last question for the coming out of the sack, digging in real deep here, was from our dear friend at Milos at Big Dog Pod. Milos asks, do you prefer Nathan Rossdog Ross with long hair or short?
I got to say, I love him with long hair. He was sort of emulating Mad Dog McDougall, and I really hope that he's going to have a really good clash with Jordan Rapana this week, as he has in previous games. But I think it's almost like Samson, like you cut the hair off, and he loses some of his draw, strength, and just allure.
Fucking Delilah.
Yeah.
But I disagree, Nagy. Now, the missus was saying to me over the weekend, so why'd Rossi cut his hair? It was beautiful. He did a beautiful head of hair. But with none, he just reminds me so much of Mad Dog, with the pumping legs, the leg speed, the bustling runs.
Yeah.
It's the second coming of Mad Dog that we've been wanting for years, and I love him with a bald head. It's a rough mug with no head.
It is.
But boy, it just works.
It works well.
Works.
And he did it for a good cause as well. I can't remember what the cause was. Cancer. He did it for cancer.
He wants to get it?
No, he's against it.
Oh, good. Oh, God. Yeah, no, I thought he was in fact. Oh,
no.
Okay, good. Yeah, that is a great cause.
It's a great cause, and he's raised a lot of money for that as well. So great. Thank you. It was such a pleasure opening up the sack once more. Inside the sack, which I'm...
Great to play around with the sack every once in a while.
And I'm terrified of it as well. Your sack, that is. Now, Liam, do you have the time?
I do. Nagy, I do have I think it's time for the news.
Time for the news. Yes, and Liam, there was an important thing that came out through the NRL at the moment, and that was in another team. That was the Penrith Panthers, and it came out that Anthony Griffin, Hook, has lost the change room, which is probably the biggest insult that you could float around for an NRL coach. They're saying that Gus Gould is actually coaching the side, and that he's just mainly got his hand firmly up Hook's bottom and is puppeteering him. Like Dickie Knee from Hey Hey Saturday. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it does seem to be the case. I mean, all the players have come out and vehemently, denied it. But all the way the players have spoken about it all just seems very pre-prepared state. Even players leaving the club. Your Bryce Cartwright's gone to the Gold Coast. Mitch Rain's gone to the Gold Coast. Yep. Another Panthers player's gone to the Gold Coast. Tyron Peachy's going to the Gold Coast next year. Yeah. They're all coming out and saying, oh, no, we love Hook. He's a great coach, blah, blah. But it all seems very pre-planned. It's written statements that they're, reading out. And although Penrith got a really good win on the weekend, I think it was off the back of some amazing individual performances. Kickout was unbelievable. Yeah. RCG was great. Wonga Blake was great. But it still seems like the game plan there is just odd. There's a game plan. They don't seem to know what to do as soon as they get in the 40. And, I think Griffin's got one foot out the door. With Gus obviously being one of the most successful coaches ever, they just bite the bullet. Make Gus the coach.
I did hear a rumour on the rumour mill that Michael Maguire is waiting in the wings to swoop straight in as soon as they're one flogging away from a lot of pressure being put on Griffin.
But, Nagy, why bring in another coach? If Gus is controlling the team, coaching the team, why don't you just keep Gus in?
Because Gus he was not employed as a coach. He wants to control this side, and he doesn't want to take any responsibility himself to say this side is fucking up, and I've had it for 7 years now, and it's still, arguably no better than, a year after I took over. So he wants to keep it at arm's length. By sacking the coach, he keeps himself in the position for another year with another solution. I'm not the biggest fan of Gus Gould, but however, it was making news and it was huge. But I had to bring, if it wasn't Anthony Griffin, a lot of coaches, a lot of pressure on this year. Who do you reckon is another coach that might be, got the tap on the shoulder just creeping up their back?
Well, for me, it's got to be Stephen Kearney. Yeah. I think, as Jousters would know, who listen pretty regularly, we're kind of bemused as how Stephen Kearney's still coaching a first-grade side in the NRL. But
Absolutely, yeah.
watching the Warriors on the weekend, they were amazing. They were unbelievable. They were kind of playing that Warriors brand of football that we all expected. However, 2 losses from them, they slide back into Warriors mediocrity. I think you might see Stephen Kearney out the door, which ironically, his assistant, Andrew McFadden, was the previous head coach of the Warriors, which is kind of... It's a strange one. He got fired and then came back as the assistant to his replacement. I don't understand that.
It's like a broken sort of... It's like a family splitting up and then you sort of invite Dad back in, but he's in the granny flat.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I don't quite understand that. So I think he's under the pump. I believe... I think going into the season, Ivan Cleary, a lot of people are saying, he needs results fast. No, he's at the start of a build-up.
Yeah.
He doesn't need results fast. He's doing exactly what he was brought in to do. Shane Flanagan, I feel like, he's got results. He's had a premiership. His team slid down a bit last year. They're coming out as a team with some superstars who are all dickheads. They're just a very unlikable team.
They are.
And if they don't succeed, I think Cronulla are going to start looking at Shane Flanagan saying, well, hang on, what the hell?
Yeah.
Last premiership in 2016, we're going backwards now.
The Michael Maguire story. Yeah, no, and I have to agree, but I think Sticky Ricky is going to be if we win another clincher over there, there's those games that they just can't get the 2 points on the board. They just they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory last week. So I think if a few more of those, pressure starts coming on. And he went to Canberra, falling out the arse end of Parramatta, leaving them before. What's his name? The Parramatta coach.
B. Arthur.
B. Arthur came in and was rebuilt that club, so he showed that they could be done there, but he almost bowed to them, and I think the pressure's on Sticky.
Actually, I agree with you about Ricky, because they were within one game of a grand final 2 seasons ago, took a similar squad into last year, didn't even make the 8, and this year, from what they've shown, albeit in the first game, it still seems like a team that doesn't quite know how to utilise some great assets. They've got a really good squad, but how to utilise them.
I think also, thank you very much for the input, Liam. Liam, something happened in the last week. There was a bit of a... we had a giveaway here. These gorgeous... gorgeous mugs that are they're now prize Knights fans' possessions, and they're wonderful to have. However, we've run out of mugs. Hashtag mugs out. We'll come up with a bit of hashtag.
None mugs.
None mugs.
None mugs.
Ugly mugs? No, they're beautiful.
They're gorgeous. We're the ugly mugs.
But we've run out of mugs. However, keep your eyes out for some other really stupid promo material from the Joust that we will be coming up with very soon. So please, eyes open for the on the Joust page for that.
Whatever's cheapest. We'll get whatever's cheapest.
Whatever's cheapest. They do serve me well, though. They've got a nice wide handle.
Which is good for our fat hands.
Good for the fat hands. The fingers you're using to hold the cup are too fat. It was... so keep your eyes out for that, but we're currently out of mugs, but we love the mug support from all you mugs out there. No. But Liam, it's been a pleasure to talk to you about footy once again this week of the Joust. We'll be back next week, but if you want to catch this episode, obviously listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, follow us on Facebook, like us on Facebook as well if you like, and all the pipes, all the social pipes.
All of them. We've got Twitter, we've got Instagram, you name it. We're all over it.
Yeah, almost too much.
We're very hip.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Mm-hmm. But it's been a pleasure talking to you once again, Liam, and good luck against the Canberra Raiders this week. Not yourself personally, but everyone listening, because we know we have a lot of the nice players listening as well.
And we're also heavily invested in the club and in the team ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Justice, for listening. We'll catch you all next week.